My wife, the president of a large company, has always been cold. We've been married for years, and she has never told me she loves me, not even once. If I happen to touch her, she immediately gets furious. Even if I just step into her room, she's capable of throwing a desk lamp right at me. That day, after drinking too much, I mistakenly entered her room. She immediately grabbed the bowling ball she kept by the bed and threw it hard at me, shouting, "You show up smelling of alcohol and dare to enter my room. Everyone knows exactly what you have on your mind. Get out." The door slammed shut. Blood began to run down my forehead. All I could do was shake my head and smile bitterly. So many years, and she still hates me like this. The closing door nearly hit the bridge of my nose. The burning sensation in my head sobered me up immediately. Since we got married, I've never had the chance to enter her room. For me, that place is like a forbidden zone. She always said she wasn't ready, asking me to give her more time to adjust. But if I dared to overstep the boundaries even a little, her face would darken, and she would react harshly. That night, while drinking with Javi, he brought up the topic again. He even joked that I was too naive. When a person is young and in love, it can still be acceptable. But after so many years of marriage, remaining the same is hard to justify. When two people love each other, there comes a time when sharing that intimacy is natural and valuable. And dress. This might seem more or less important, but if she truly loved you, it wouldn't be this way, Javi said clearly. For an instant, I hesitated, but I answered firmly, I trust her. I'll give her a little more time. Returning home, I just wanted to see if she was there. But what I got was a bleeding wound. Doubt began to surface inside me. Marie's family never raised their daughters with an outdated, conservative mentality. Why, then, does she reject the closeness of her own husband after so many years of marriage? Could Javi be right? The more I thought, the more restless I felt. After simply cleaning the wound on my head, I returned to the living room where I had spent so many nights looking at the starry sky outside the window. I lit a cigarette, trying to dispel the confusion in my heart. The next morning, I woke up early and prepared the rib congee she liked the most. After all, I drank last night and was a bit rough. So early in the morning, I sent her many messages apologizing and even ordered her a gift online. But when everything was ready, she still hadn't left her room. By that time, she should have been awake, according to her custom, but I would never dare approach her room. It wasn't until noon that I received a message from her. Go to the usual nail salon and buy a milk tea for Sofia and me. So, she had already gone out to have fun with her best friend early that day. Still, receiving a message from her calmed me down, and I quickly changed my clothes and went out to buy the drinks. In my mind, a wife must be pampered. But when I cheerfully arrived at the door of the nail salon, the conversation between her and Sofia was like a bucket of cold water thrown onto the flame of my heart. You're saying that last night he got drunk and came into your room? And you hit his head with the lamp? Sofia asked in astonishment. You went too far. After all, he's been your husband for so many years. So what? Marie replied coldly, with a hint of annoyance. He is not worthy of touching me. Hearing this, my heart froze, and the glass of milk tea almost slipped from my hands. Marie, are you really planning never to let him touch you? Sofia insisted. Marie kept silent. My heart was suspended, aching, waiting for her answer, and then her words were like a blow of 1,000 kilograms straight to my chest. She said, I want to save the most beautiful part of me for Diego. Diego? Didn't he go abroad a long time ago? Maria's voice seemed to hold a slight hint of surprise. The night before last, at midnight, he sent me a message saying he missed me and that he would come back for me very soon. My ears started ringing, and I felt as if my body had lost all gravity. During all these years, I had never doubted her. I always believed she simply wasn't ready, so I was willing to give her more time. But now I realize, she rejected me, kept her distance from me, only to keep herself pure for the first love she held in her heart. Suddenly, I felt an enormous weariness in my soul. I didn't want to love Maria anymore. All these years, I had already fully paid the debt of gratitude I owed her family. If there was already another man in her heart, I didn't need to continue holding on pathetically. It would be best to set her free and, in the process, free myself. With the decision made, I was about to push the door open and clarify everything. But the gesture stopped. Although Maria had hurt me, her family had genuinely done me a great favor. Even if we divorced, I shouldn't make a scene. In the past, my family had been very prosperous. But the year I was about to graduate, the business group was destroyed by the intrigues of those my father most trusted. Crossed interests, entanglements everywhere. Many who had envied us before took the opportunity to finish us off. The relatives who always surrounded us disappeared without a trace. We sold the car and the house, paid penalties and fines, and the family's savings ran out. We went from a huge house to a small apartment, then to a damp basement, and finally ended up sleeping on park benches and under bridges. After that blow and several days of hunger and cold, my parents became gravely ill. I knelt before those friends with whom I once shared luxuries, asking for money for treatment, but I only received cold stares, mockery, and contempt. I still remember that icy night when I saw with my own eyes how life slowly slipped away from their sick bodies. In her last moments, my mother, trembling and with a weak voice, said, Andres, your father and I are sorry. You must live well, and one day, you will achieve brilliant success. As soon as she finished speaking, her hand fell to the floor. Lifeless, I knelt, embracing them, crying with a broken soul. But no matter how much I shouted, they would not open their eyes to look at me one more time. There was a time when I lost the will to live, but I couldn't forget my mother's words. The few on family only had me. I had to get up, crush all those who had destroyed my home, and force those who humiliated me to bow their heads before me. Afterward, the opportunity came. Maria's father sought me out. He helped me with my parents' funerals, took me into his house, and gave me a job in the group. Since then, with limitless ambition, I took advantage of Maria's family resources and ascended step by step. I learned to network with people, associate with important figures, and became an indispensable pillar of the company. Because of that debt of gratitude, even if I divorced, I could only discuss it privately, striving to maintain the honor of Maria's family. Thinking this, I composed myself, smiled, and pushed the door open. Maria, I brought your milk tea. She took it without much enthusiasm and continued with her manicure. Afterward, I accompanied them for a stroll through the mall, and soon my hands were full of bags and packages. At times, Sophia looked at me with a complex expression, as if she saw a man who was being fooled without realizing it. With a hint of mockery and sarcasm, as evening fell, they finally said goodbye reluctantly. Maria and I went down to the parking lot and sat in the car. Seeing that no one was around, I said, let's get divorced. Maria was a little stunned. Staring at me intently, I continued, our marriage has been nothing more than a facade for a long time. Right? You don't love me, you just followed your family's arrangements and married me reluctantly. Divorcing, I believe, will be the best ending for both of us. Maria turned her head to look out the window. A long time passed before she spoke. I want to go home. She didn't want to answer anything else. And I didn't insist either. I didn't expect that after making everything clear, my heart would feel so much lighter. We remained in silence the entire way. Upon arriving home, we each returned to our own rooms. As I lay down, the day's exhaustion quickly made me fall into a deep sleep. At midnight, I suddenly heard some noises, as if someone was opening the door to my room. Half asleep, I opened my eyes and looked toward the door. I saw a figure with long, loose hair entering the room. Maria, I rubbed my eyes and called her gently, but there was no response. The cold light of the moon cut through the window and fell right on her. As she approached, in the faint clarity, I saw that she carried a shining object in her hand. After an instant of confusion, I reacted immediately. It was a knife. I turned on the bedside table switch. The light clearly revealed Maria's somber face. In her hand, she tightly held a kitchen knife. Her eyes stared fixedly at me with intense hatred and coldness. I frowned and asked in an icy voice, "What do you plan to do?" Maria didn't answer. Her face remained expressionless, and her gaze changed unpredictably. In the silence, I gradually calmed down. However crazy she was, I didn't believe she was truly capable of killing. In the worst case, she would go to a psychiatric hospital, and I could definitively break up with her and speak directly with her father about the divorce. "Why do you want to divorce me?" Maria gripped the knife tighter, her face distorted by fury. "Is it because you have another woman outside?" Hearing that, I found it ridiculous. Clearly, her heart has always been thinking of another man, and now she asks if I've been unfaithful to her. I frowned, and suddenly, Maria felt completely strange to me. "Do you really think I'm that kind of person?" All these years, I worked hard for Maria's family to build a career. Aside from inevitable social gatherings, I have rarely even attended company parties, much less had contact with other women. "If you don't have another woman, then why do you want a divorce?" Her beautiful face was covered in a dark shadow. "I have already told you clearly," I responded calmly. "This marriage has no love, so there's no reason to keep wasting time. Back then, you knelt to beg my father to let you marry me." She looked at me coldly. "And now you say it's a waste of time?" I froze. So, in her eyes, I was that despicable. Years ago, Maria and her first love, Diego, were deeply in love, but Diego's family suffered a misfortune. The entire family fell into crisis. The matter involved both politics and business, which caused Diego's family to quickly collapse, being investigated and blocked. At that moment, anyone related to them was in danger. Maria was too close to Diego. They were even planning to marry. Her father wanted to cut off all risk and avoid rumors, so he asked me to marry her. Although the marriage was for life, out of gratitude, I accepted and began to play the role of a good husband. But in Maria's eyes, that turned into brazenly snatching her beloved and destroying her relationship with Diego. Reason enough to hate me. "You are young, you can find someone more compatible than me." My voice remained calm but with a deep tone. "For example, Diego." When I pronounced his name, Maria clearly froze. "I have always known that you never forgot your love for him." "It doesn't matter. I don't blame you. I was just naive enough to think that if I was good enough to you, we could continue like this forever, 3 years, 10 years, until one day we were truly husband and wife." I laughed at myself with a bitter smile. "But I never imagined that you wouldn't let me touch you because you wanted to save your first time for Diego." A clank asterisk echoed as the knife fell to the floor. I got out of bed with resignation. picked it up, and handed it back to her. It wouldn't be good if you hurt yourself. Tomorrow, let's go to the civil registry for the divorce. Okay. No, Maria said coldly, looking at me. Why? Isn't that what you've always wanted? I asked and added, don't worry, I can leave empty-handed. All these years, everything I have came from your family. Returning it now is the right thing to do. Starting today, I won't owe you anything. Maria shook her head and said in an icy voice, I don't agree. Even if you don't agree, we'll have to get divorced anyway. Or do you want me to keep being the cuckolded husband? I found it ridiculous. I went back to bed, turned off the light, and stopped paying attention to Maria. The night passed. Before the alarm clock rang, I was already awake. Years of restless work had left me exhausted. After deciding to divorce Maria, I promised myself to take a day off, taking the opportunity to go to the civil registry to do the paperwork. During the 30-day reconciliation period, I thought it would be best to move out as soon as possible. I ruffled my messy hair and murmured, not seeing each other morning and night will be uncomfortable to avoid the tension. Upon leaving the room, I discovered that Maria had already left. I saw the breakfast she had left on the table and was surprised. Since we got married, she had never cooked or done housework. I did everything. So, I knew how to cook. I sat down at the table. Congee with minced pork and century egg. Simple but seasoned just right. The simpler a dish is, the more noticeable the skill of the person who prepares it. I didn't expect Maria to cook so well. Maybe because I never had the privilege of eating something made by her. I only discovered it now. After finishing, I went to Maria's room. Actually, none of our rooms had locks. But on our wedding night, she told me she wasn't ready and that we couldn't consummate the marriage. I perfectly remember her firm attitude, without hiding the contempt in her voice. So I always respected the agreement and never crossed the line. It wasn't until later, when her parents started hinting that they wanted a grandchild, that her attitude changed. She was no longer so abrupt. Instead, she begged me to wait a little longer. I respected her will, and even the most intimate gestures were very scarce. I waited until now to realize that she was actually saving her purity only for Diego. Once I saw everything clearly, nothing mattered anymore. I just wanted to find our marriage certificate and family book, finish the divorce proceedings as soon as possible, and end this ridiculous union. I searched the entire room without finding what I was looking for. It seemed Maria had deliberately hidden it. I called her, but she didn't answer. She didn't reply to the messages either. After waiting for almost half a day, I finally received a message, but not from Maria, but a photo sent by Javi. In the image, Maria, arm in arm with Diego, were entering a hotel together. As soon as I clearly saw the photo, I felt like I couldn't breathe, as if something was squeezing my chest, a mixture of pain and contained emotions. Surely today was the day Diego returned. Maria didn't even wait for us to finalize the divorce and ran to find him to rent a room. Eager to officially cuckold me. That's why she didn't answer calls or messages. I squeezed the phone tightly, trembling with rage. Maria, a woman who commits adultery while married. I wanted to shout it to the four winds for everyone to judge her. But for the honor of Maria's family, I forced myself to swallow my anger. It wasn't until past midnight that Maria returned with a slight smell of alcohol. When she turned on the light and saw me sitting on the sofa, she jumped and put her hand to her chest. What are you doing sitting there in the dark? Why didn't you turn on the light? Tomorrow, you come with me to the civil registry, and we'll process the divorce first. I said calmly. I already told you I don't agree to divorce. She frowned impatiently. All these years of relationship, and you plan to throw it away just like that? Relationship? I laughed ironically. Is there a relationship between us? In your heart, there is only Diego, and he is already back. Isn't he? I'm making things easier for you. If we divorce, you can go to a hotel with him without hiding. Maria's face showed an instant of bewilderment, but it immediately turned into anger. Her voice was sharp. Andres, what nonsense are you talking about? I am your wife. Don't you think you're going too far? Weren't you the one who said, I raised an eyebrow, that your first time had to be for Diego? Maria, you really are pure, huh? I have nothing else to talk to you about. Tomorrow, you come to the civil registry with me. My tone was firm. This was non-negotiable. Maria remained motionless for a few seconds, and then her expression suddenly changed completely. I was only joking with Sofia. How could I do something like that? Wait a little longer. When I'm ready, I will give myself completely to you. As she spoke, she lowered her head, showing an air of shyness. At that moment, you can do whatever you want. If I hadn't heard it with my own ears and also had the photo in my hands, I might really have believed her words. But now, it just seems ridiculous. Stop pretending. If we wait a little longer, I'm afraid you'll already be pregnant with Diego's child. When it shows up in the test, you'll say it's mine and make me wear these horns for life. I immediately opened the photo on my phone and put it in front of Maria. She still wanted to deny it. That photo is retouched. Andres, you have to believe me. I looked at her, feeling a deep disgust. Do I have to catch you in bed for you to admit it? It's not what you think. Stop. Maria grabbed my wrist, speaking nervously. Diego and I rented 2 separate rooms just to rest. Nothing happened. That seemed as absurd as possible to me. Maria, you invent a lie like that, and it doesn't seem ridiculous to you. I replied coldly. I can ask them to investigate the hotel's register. Do you really want the matter to become so big? Out of respect for your parents. Don't make me lose my patience. Tomorrow, we divorce. That way, we at least keep some dignity. No way. Maria's emotion immediately exploded. She took the fruit knife from the table and put it to her neck. A red line immediately appeared on her white skin. Are you crazy? I snatched the knife from her hands. Regardless of the blade cutting my palm, the pain made my blood boil. You know what you've done better than anyone. Don't come here with blackmail. If you want to die, do it somewhere else. Hearing that, Maria stared at me fixedly. Andres, do you really want to be so cruel? It's not that you don't know how to behave. I no longer held back. You don't want to divorce? Fine, we'll see what your father says. Maria was immediately scared, her eyes reddening. Can't we talk about it? There's no need for him to know. I pushed her hand away. I gave you the choice. But today you went to look for him anyway. Everything ends here. Without saying more, I left the house and spent the night in a hotel. I suddenly felt light. The next morning, I left the hotel. Since her father likes tea, I always bring him a gift whenever I go. And even though the situation was special this time, I didn't make an exception. When I arrived at his house, it was already almost noon. My mother-in-law greeted me with a big smile. Andres, how is it that you have time to come today? They always say you're very busy, that you even have to steal time to eat. Today, I'm going to cook myself, and you'll have to eat a lot. Faced with her warmth, I felt something complicated, and forcing a smile, I said, no need to bother so much. I came to talk with Dad for a moment, then I'll leave right away. She waved her hand with a slight reproach. Son, however busy you are, you have to eat well. Say no more, I'm going to prepare everything. And she went straight to the kitchen without letting me refuse. My in-laws have always been like this. Since I married Maria, they have treated me like a son in every aspect. Their house was like a second home to me. Too bad that because of Maria, I have to distance myself from this place. The mansion has a special tea room. Maria's father, seeing the bags I brought, smiled. Andres, I haven't even finished the tea you brought last time. I told you there was no need to bring more. After so many years, you're still so formal. I put the things down and smiled, joking. If you like the tea, I'll bring you more. If you prefer something else, I'll change it. He laughed contentedly and shook his head. The gesture is enough for me. And today, how is it that you come alone? Where is Maria? She had things to do. Stop, I replied briefly. I sat down and chatted a few words with my father-in-law before saying, Dad, actually, this time I came to talk to you about a matter. My father-in-law raised his head and looked at me with the same kind gaze as always, which made me hesitate for an instant. But in the end, I gritted my teeth and said, I want to divorce Maria. What? My father-in-law's eyes widened in surprise, and he almost stood up abruptly from the chair. After staying silent for a moment, he frowned and asked me in a serious voice, Did you argue, or is it just a passing anger? If something is wrong, tell me, and I will talk seriously with her. My father-in-law knew me well. If it weren't for a weighty reason, I would never mention divorce. I shook my head. Dad, actually, since we got married, Maria and I have always slept in separate rooms. We are only united by that paper from the civil registry. Husband and wife in name only. Maria has always longed for Diego and feels nothing for me. Now that he has returned, I think the best thing is to end this marriage. Hearing me, my father-in-law basically understood. What man can bear that his wife thinks of another day and night? He remained silent for a long time before asking me, Andres, do you love Maria? Upon hearing him, I pressed my lips together and kept quiet. Everyone could see what I felt for Maria. Since we got married, I not only fulfilled my duties as a husband but also took meticulous care of her in every detail. Although she didn't allow me to touch her, I never did anything inappropriate or had an ambiguous relationship with another woman. I thought time would prove everything, but I never imagined that this love would only make me small, insignificant as dust. It only took Diego's return for Maria to run into his arms, turning me into a mockery. My father-in-law sighed. Andres, you know I truly consider you a son. Maria has always given us worries since she was little. If you still feel something, I will speak seriously with her so she comes to her senses. But at this point, I just want to resolve it peacefully. If I showed him the photo of Maria and Diego at the hotel, not only would our marriage break, but it would also break my in-laws' hearts. That's not necessary, I said in a firm voice. Dad, Maria and I have no future. Do you know how I felt when I heard from her own mouth that she wouldn't let me touch her to save her virginity for Diego? It was as if 1,000 knives were plunged into my heart. Who could bear a wife like that? Even if it was just an emotional betrayal, I can't overlook it. I didn't tell him the whole truth about them staying together, but my father-in-law's face was already somber. How dare she? What a disgrace. Andres, don't worry, I'll call her right now so she gives you an explanation. At that moment, Maria appeared at the door, looking at me with resentment. Fine, I'll give you an explanation. Andres, do you really want to make this so big? You want a divorce? I'll bring the papers right now. Wielder it. Having said this, she turned and left. I don't know why she appeared like that, but this result was just what I wanted. I never wanted to make a scene, much less embarrass her family. I just want to divorce quickly. End this ridiculous marriage once and for all. And nothing more. Dad, I suppose I won't be able to call you that in the future. I stood up and gave a deep bow. But I will always remember your affection and care all these years. I am very grateful to you. My father-in-law frowned and sighed. After the divorce, are you not planning to visit us again? I just smiled without answering. I looked at him deeply and left. In front of the house door, Maria was waiting for me. I looked at my watch. If we go to the civil registry now, they surely have finished the lunch break. We'll arrive just in time. Andres, are you in such a hurry to divorce me? Maria frowned, looking at me, pointing toward the room. You don't even mind making a scene in front of my parents. What I joked about with Sofia. How can you take it seriously? Between Diego and me, really nothing happened. Can you believe me just once? Maria, the truth no longer matters too much. I shook my head and said calmly, I have simply thought things through clearly. Throughout all these years, Diego has always been in your heart. And I have only been a husband in name who took advantage of your father to ascend. Since that's the case, I'll set you free to be with him. After the divorce, you can go with him openly. After all, I have never touched you. Hearing that, Maria's face darkened, and she said coldly, so much talk. Isn't it just that you're reproaching me for not having done that with you? I already told you. Is it so hard to give me a little time to get ready? You look at me like that. I frowned, ready to say something, but seeing her self-righteous attitude, I understood that there was nothing more to say. Did you bring all the papers? Let's go to the civil registry. I didn't bring them, Maria replied coldly, evidently with no intention of going. It turned out that her defiant attitude from before was just to get me out of the house in front of her father. That childish act seemed ridiculous to me. I nodded and said with indifference, then we won't divorce. Hearing this, Maria's eyes brightened, but her expression immediately fell because of my next sentence. Whether we divorce or not, I'm leaving. In reality, it doesn't change much. What? Maria immediately asked. Leave? Where are you planning to go? That has nothing to do with you, I replied coldly. She grabbed my wrist with some panic in her expression. We're not divorced yet. How can it have nothing to do with me? To this extent, do you still want to use an empty marriage to tie me down? I looked her directly in the eyes and said coldly, from now on, I will go wherever I want. I will do whatever I want. You won't be able to control it. And don't ask, Andres. Maria, she exclaimed angrily, but she soon contained her emotions and softened her voice. Don't be like that. Yes, let's live well together. Do whatever you want. I will obey you. It seemed she had made a big decision, and there was firm determination on her beautiful face. If it had been before, I might have been happy. First, the career, then the family. We had been married for a long time, and only the step of having children was missing. But what I once hoped for now didn't provoke even a minimum of emotion in me. I had already paid my debt of gratitude to Maria's family, and I had also let go of my feelings for her. Now, I had to leave. From now on, I would live only for myself. Forget it, I said in a dull voice. What didn't exist before, I don't want now either. Having said this, I walked out the door of the mansion and got into the car to go home. Maria also drove, following me the whole way. I didn't pay attention to her. Upon arriving home, I began to pack. It turned out that after so many years of living together, my belongings weren't many. A single suitcase was enough. When I was dragging it out, Maria blocked me at the door. Can you not go? I remained silent. Her eyes reddened. Leave the suitcase. Let's pretend nothing ever happened. Then she unbuttoned her shirt one by one. Isn't this what you've always wanted? I'll give it to you. I'll give you everything. Okay. As the buttons fell, her white, smooth skin was exposed. I looked at her calmly, neither speaking nor stopping her. When only her bra was left, she began to realize the reality and asked in a low voice, do we really have no chance left? I didn't answer. I just said, get out of the way. Maria took a few heavy steps toward the wall, slowly crouched down, hugged her knees, and burst into tears. I looked down at her with a certain melancholy and then left with the suitcase. Crossing the threshold, everything seemed to have changed. The moment the door closed, and with it, all the memories of the past were blocked. Finally, everything was over. The money I had saved for years was enough for me to rest for a while. I had already gone to see the mountains. I had also visited the sea. When I rode a steed across the prairie, I had never felt so free and full in my entire life. That day, I finally received a phone call. It was a notice from the lawyer's office. It was about the divorce lawsuit filed by Maria. Since I left, she no longer had a reason to keep a marriage in name only. Besides, she never loved me, and Diego was always in the middle. Divorce was only a matter of time. I didn't hesitate. I immediately bought a plane ticket to return. Half a day later, I set foot again in the city laden with memories and wounds. Upon leaving the airport, I couldn't help but feel a slight melancholy. This place reminded me of all those years of impotence and bitterness. But here there were also people I once cared about and traces that I had lived. I shook my head, stopped thinking, and took a taxi directly to the address of the lawyer's office. But upon arriving, the office was completely empty. Is anyone here? I asked softly. Steps were heard behind me. Before I could turn around, I felt a sharp pain in the back of my head. My vision darkened, and I fell unconscious. I don't know how much time passed, but when I opened my eyes, everything was dark, with the little dim light and the rusty, old objects. I assumed I was in an abandoned factory. Noises were heard next to me. I turned my head with difficulty. I saw Diego, also tied up, kneeling on the floor, but he looked healthy and conscious. I frowned, thought for a moment, and gradually came to a conclusion. He had planned a kidnapping on his own just to test to what extent Maria loved him. Would she be capable of letting me die for him? The answer was too clear. There was no need to stage a theater like this. Or maybe he just wanted to reopen my wound and rub salt in it again. Another sharp pain in my head, and my consciousness began to fade. Steps were heard in the distance. I made an effort to look up. Maria was entering with a suitcase, talking to the kidnappers as if preparing to pay a ransom. Seeing her, a spark of hope flashed in my heart, but it immediately died down. If this were a choice of one or the other, she would undoubtedly not choose me. Thinking that, I lowered my head and let myself fall back into unconsciousness. At least losing consciousness was easier than facing that cruel truth. The next time I woke up, the first thing I felt was the smell of damp, rotten earth. Where was I now? Before figuring it out, a tearing pain throughout my body made me lose the thread of my thoughts. It hurt too much. My arms and legs seemed broken, without any strength. Only the pain remained, so much that I couldn't distinguish which part was injured. I didn't have the energy to check. I could only lie there like a corpse without a breath of life. Everything around was darkness and silence. The only thing waiting for me was death. As expected, Maria had not chosen to save me because at that moment, she still held a glimmer of illusion. Between a deep first love and a husband she was forced to marry. Anyone knows who she would choose. I don't know why, but thinking about it, an empty pain pierced my chest. Could it be that I actually still hadn't let go of Maria? How ridiculous. Self-criticism and sadness finally turned into despair. I slowly closed my eyes, waiting for the arrival of death. Dad, Mom, are you waiting for me? This life of mine has been too exhausting. The urgent sound of a siren broke the silence from afar, getting closer, as if urging me to open my eyes. A beam of light from a headlight illuminated me directly. I heard someone shout, "Here!" Several silhouettes rushed toward me quickly, urging, hold on, hold on." I also wanted to resist, but my eyelids were getting heavier and heavier. Before losing consciousness, I only felt them placing me on a stretcher, and then everything went dark. When I regained consciousness, my nose perceived a strong smell of disinfectant. I wanted to open my eyes to look around, but I couldn't at all, as if I had lost control of my own body. Next to my ear, a familiar voice sounded. "Doctor, when will he wake up?" I concentrated on listening and soon recognized Javi's voice. At that moment, another voice replied, "The patient has suffered extremely cruel tortures, multiple traumas with internal hemorrhage. These injuries can recover little by little, but the patient's brain has suffered severe damage with neurological injury, and there is a high possibility of remaining in a vegetative state." Hearing this, I felt my heart sink. Me, in a vegetative state, and for how long? I tried to sit up, but no matter how hard I tried, my body only responded with a feeling of extreme weakness. I couldn't even move a finger. If that was the case, I would have preferred not to be saved. I longed for freedom and could accept death, but I didn't want to live as an invalid. Javi continued talking with the doctor for a long time, but I no longer listened clearly until he sighed, sat next to my bed, and said, "Andres, tell me, why is fate so unfair? The softest rope breaks first, and bad luck always seeks out the most wretched. Your parents died early, leaving you alone, and on top of that, you fell in love with a woman who wasn't worth it." Maria got endlessly entangled with Diego. Who wouldn't laugh upon hearing it, even though she realized it later and thought of you every day? If it weren't for her, how would you have ended up like this? While Javi spoke and sighed, I learned more things. It turns out that after I left, Maria felt deep regret. Diego couldn't accept it and staged a fake kidnapping scene to find out who Maria really loved. At that moment, she didn't choose him but me. Diego, enraged, decided to take revenge immediately. He ordered Maria to be captured and forced her to witness me being brutally beaten. That was the cause of my serious injuries. Then, Diego tied her up in another place, leaving her to consume herself in hunger and regret while waiting for death. Several days without news of Maria made her family suspicious, and they sent people to investigate. It didn't take them long to find Diego. Through certain methods, they forced him to reveal the place where he was holding us. After receiving the report, the police quickly came to the rescue. Fortunately, the time in captivity wasn't too long, and both Maria and I managed to survive. Although her condition is not very good either, she is also in a coma, receiving treatment in the room next door. Hearing all that, 1,000 emotions intertwined in my heart. Happiness because Maria had chosen me, but also regret for having once handed her over to Diego. Knowing a person is not the same as knowing their heart. Who could imagine that Diego would reach such a degree of madness, capable of committing such extreme and dangerous acts? And if I hadn't returned, what would have become of Maria in his hands? I don't dare to keep thinking. In the darkness of the coma, I heard a familiar voice again. Andres, my father-in-law's voice, full of sadness. He must have already heard the doctor talk about my condition. Warm hands took mine. My mother-in-law, in pain, said, "Poor child, what are we going to do now?" Hearing the compassion in their words, a comforting warmth bloomed in my heart. All this time, Maria's family had always treated me like a son. After Maria and I married, they practically became my parents. I want to recover soon. I want to sit up and hug them. The world is still beautiful. There are still people worth cherishing. I can't stay here lying down forever. The faith to keep living flooded my heart. I felt my pulse getting stronger little by little. Next to me, Javi exclaimed in astonishment, almost whispering, "Andres's pulse has changed. He hears us. He doesn't feel it," but I could only respond in that way. In the prolonged darkness, I couldn't distinguish day from night, only guess by the nurse's shifts. I estimate that more than 10 days had passed. That day, Maria, with her wounds still not healed, entered my room. In a broken voice, she said, "Andres, I have missed you so much." I could feel her gently leaning over and resting her head on my chest. Her voice became even more choked. "I miss you so much. Could you please wake up? We haven't divorced yet. I promise I will be good. That I will be the sweetest wife in the world." My incessant effort finally got a response. In that instant, my finger suddenly moved slightly. "I'll take that as you accept." "Okay." Time passed until a twilight evening. The sunset spread, the western sky was radiant. I could already sit up, but I didn't let anyone know that I was recovering. Soon, I could also walk little by little. I knew I was close to regaining my freedom, so I immediately called Javi. He cried with joy, and I asked him to arrange my departure. In secret, of course. If Maria found out, she surely wouldn't let me go. In effect, Javi acted quickly, and the day to leave the hospital soon arrived. I would leave this city, leaving behind all the memories here. Sitting on the plane, I looked at the city one last time before closing the curtain. For me, this was a new beginning. Goodbye, Maria. Goodbye, the me of the past.